Alright, we're going to develop the quotient rule for exponents. So remember, a quotient means dividing. So what we're going to do is take and divide two things where the base is the same but they have different exponents. So if I write down the meaning here, x times x times x times x times x, that's what x to the fifth is. And in the denominator, x squared is x times x. You can see that you can cancel some of the x's out, so really you end up with just a 1, right, in the denominator. And then you have x cubed in the numerator over 1, which is just x cubed. Okay. So let's see. What if it was x to the 50th over x to the 20th? Well, I could write out 50 x's and 20 x's in the denominator, but I don't have space on here. So I have to think, what would happen? If I wrote 50 at the top and 20 at the bottom, 20 would cancel out of the top, and at the bottom I'd have 1 again, and I'd be left with 30 at the top. We can get that by just writing the base. It's the same, as long as it's the same base, you write the base once and subtract the exponents. 50 minus 20 is how many x's I would still have up on the top would be 30. Hey, that's it. That's the quotient rule. If you have the same base in the numerator and the denominator, the quotient rule says you can write the base once and you subtract. So here it is, b to the m over b to the n equals b, the base, that's why I'm using the letter b, to the m minus m. And I'm going to make a little note, b cannot be 0 because we can never have a 0 in the denominator. That would be undefined. So this is the more accurate way to write it. But the basic quotient rule is you just subtract exponents as long as b is not equal to 0. Okay, let's try this one. Again, we could write this all out and we'd have 4 m's, 8 n's. Can I get them all in here? In the numerator. And I've got 1 m and 2 n's in the denominator. So you can only cancel out exactly the same thing. That m and m, that n cancels with this one. So you see how I'm going to have 1's in the denominator. So what I end up with here is I've got m cubed over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 n's, right? But what's the shortcut way using the formula? Well, I could think of the m to the 4th over the m times the n to the 8th over the n squared. I'm not saying you need to write it out, but you could think about it that way. And the exponent on that m is really just a 1. Again, you have to be careful. There is a factor of m down there that would cancel with one of the factors of m if I did write it out. So using the formula, I would get m, 4 minus 1 is 3, and for the n's, 8 minus 2 is 6. And there you go. Okay, here's one for you to try. Put it on pause and try it, and then check against my answer. Okay, now I purposely didn't put the x squared right over the x, but when you do that, you would be subtracting exponents. You would have x to the first, or x. Y, if you subtract those exponents, will give you a y cubed. And if I subtract the exponents on n, that will give you an n cubed. Because remember, that's really an n to the first, and that's really an x to the first. And so, here we go. Alright, now we're going to do one that's a little bit different. Let's say you had x to the 4th over x to the 4th. Okay, well, gosh, those are exactly the same. So, it stands to reason that that's just 1. You know, that's like 3 over 3 equals 1. Any number that's the same thing over itself is going to completely cancel to 1, correct? So x to the fourth over x to the fourth is 1. But let's look at our laws of exponents. So you didn't notice that. And you use the law which says just subtract the exponents. You get x to the 0. Well, oh, wait a minute. One way I do it, I get an answer of 1, and that should make sense. And then I do it a different way using my law of exponents, which is my quotient rule, and I get x to the 0. Well, that is because x to the 0 does equal 1. Tricky, isn't it? But that's the law of the exponent. When the exponent is 0, we write b to the 0 equals 1. That's the law of the 0 exponent. So it doesn't matter what it is. If it's to the 0 power, it equals 1. So if you've got 7 to the 0, that equals 1. If you have a negative 3 in parentheses to the 0, that equals 1. If you've got a bunch of stuff, I don't care what's in that parentheses, and you raise it to the 0 power, it equals 1. So this one's a little bit tricky. You have to pretty much memorize it. B to the 0 always equals the number 1. Okay, let's take a look at this one. 18x to the 6th m to the 8th all over negative 3x to the 6th m squared. Now I'm sort of going to put the ones that are like alike kind of together, so I want to look at my coefficients. My 18 over negative 3, those are not exponents. That still means 18 divided by negative 3. So 18 divided by negative 3, I have to sort of deal with that. Now what about this x to the 6th over the x to the 6th? You can write that as x to the 0, which is 1, or you could simply cancel and get 1. And then we have m to the 8th over m squared. So 18 over negative 3 is negative 6, that's 1, and that is m to the 6th. So I get negative 6 m to the 6th for my answer. Now, you don't need to write all that out. You can go right to it. A bunch of extra dots here. So in other words, you could go ahead and do your normal canceling here, realizing the answer is going to be negative 6 because it's 18 divided by negative 3. And then those are going to completely cancel, right? And I guess here I could have put 1. And then for the m to the 8th over m squared, you can subtract exponents so that you could see I've got in the numerator, in the denominator, there'll all be 1s, and you get negative 6 m to the 6th. Alright, again, different strokes for different folks. Okay, let's work on this one. See if you could do it on your own first. Put it on pause and then come back. Okay. This first one, 5x to the 0. 5 is not to the 0 power. You don't see it, but that's really just 5 to the first power. The only thing to the 0 power is x. That's the base. So I have 5 times, what is x to the 0 power? 1. Minus, what do I have over here? Y to the 0, that's the base. But anything to the 0 power is 1. And next part, 3x to the 0. So again, it's just something to the 0 power. Anything of that sort is 1. So my final answer here will be 5, right? Minus 1 plus 1 is still going to give you 5. Okay, so summarizing, we have the quotient rule, b to the m over b to the n equals b to the m minus n. Again, we've got to be very careful of, watch out for this kind of problem. 7 to the 8th over 7 squared, what does that equal? The 7's do not cancel out. You write the base if it's the same and subtract the exponent, 7 to the 6th. A common mistake is to write the answer as 1 to the 6th, which is just 1. But think about that. 7 to the 8th is a huge number and you're dividing by 49. The answer is not going to be 1. Okay, the second part that we did here was that b to the 0 equals 1. And just so you see something that's going to be coming up, if you have x squared over x to the 5th, if I use this quotient rule, I'm going to get x to the 2 minus 5 equals x to the negative 3. We're going to discover what x to the negative 3 means in the next video. So, isn't that exciting? Okay, so have fun with these and see you on the next one.